not use it. And
So, so Charlotte, we met last time we met, we talked about inner baby and birth trauma, which was really interesting. And for me, it touched a big nerve. You know, it was a big thing for I found that really enlightening. And so what are the other things that you have in your arsenal? I know that because I met you through Claire Jackson, who is a non-personal awareness NPA practitioner, that you do NPA as well. Is that fair to say? How do you use your NPA?
yeah, I do use NPA, which is, as you said, the non-personal technique, and it's absolutely fabulous. Because it doesn't need you to be in a certain place, like feeling place or a thinking place. So it can meet you where you are, which means that wherever you are, whatever's going on, you can potentially choose NPA as a tool.
Mm.
And then it changes your relationship to what's going on, changes where you are. It can work what seems like miracles, but it can really just that little shift by little shift, or sometimes a big shift, to really support you with what you want to do, or and that might be letting something out in order to make that space, or it might be just bringing something in that you've been keeping out. And it all sounds a bit like, what does all that mean? But um but it's like aligning you to what wants to happen, aligning you to the things you really care about that really matter to you. It's kind of an alignment tool, if you like, in that way. But it's so simple, it's difficult to explain, and maybe different from others. It's and it can be used in so many beautiful ways, like conflict resolution, for example, is one of the beautiful ways. So when I use it, I often use it in ways, um, sometimes, especially when you're working with, for example, well, any parts, but often when I'm working with people with young babies, and that baby will have had a conflict, for example, whereby they really, really have just been born and it's been challenging, and they really want to be with their mother, but they've been separated. That was one of the
Mm.
things we talked about.
Yeah,
That
we talked about
that
that. Yeah.
happens, that can be really painful for that baby, and it can put them into a kind of conflict place where they want and don't want, because like that push pull place
Mm,
inside, where
mm.
you really want the person the person that you've been separated from, but they're also can be really scared and retreated into themselves. They don't want to be touched, because if you've had a trauma, so you can have this push pull impact that's happening, and the energies of, well, I really want that comfort again, I want that touch, I want that, but I don't want anything in case it's really scary again. Or if you bring it into adult life, I think I can't remember if I talked last time about wanting to have people in a paid experience for business, and then being scared people wouldn't come.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
kind of have this conflict within, where you really want those people to come. You're going to be successful in my business, I'm going to have this group, I'm going to really help people, like I really want that support and helps, because that's kind of the motivation that I'm living myself, where I want people to be supported and helped. I want them to have do what really matters to them. And then I'm like, oh, what if no one comes, and I'm worried about it? And then I was like, at the time, I was like, that was the imprint from the baby, where no one came, and it was so full of grief for me, so painful, that I never wanted to experience that again. So at the same time, there's this desperate longing for somebody to comfort you, for someone to hold you,
Mm.
but you don't want that, because you might feel that grief again. So you've got this push pull impact in, where you feel in struggle and conflict, and something's off, and you're trying really hard to do this thing, but a whole part of you's got the brakes on.
Yeah. But
That
do you
kind of
think that's, I mean, the way I know that your perspective is very much on this birth
mm,
trauma, but do you not think that trauma of that, that can happen at any time in childhood? I
yeah.
mean, it can happen in adulthood as well. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
to a certain degree. I mean, if you get burnt in a relationship, it's very hard to give your trust. It's the same kind of thing. Like, you want it, but you don't want it.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that we all, that does happen in lots of different ways, for sure. Um, so, I mean, what, I wanted to get you, talk to you again, because I feel like, you've got a lot to offer, and you've got a lot of wisdom, and you've got a lot of stuff. But what is it that you wanting to convey at the moment? What is it that what are your goals, I suppose, at the moment? What's happening in Charlotte's
Um,
world?
One of the things that I'm really keen on both is like helping people to get the things done they want to do. Because the time of the world at the moment is it's all gone a bit crazy in the last few years. People have started to really reassess their priorities in life
Mm-hmm.
and really reassess what matters to them when they've had enforced time at home or off work, or there's the crisis of the cost of living, particularly in the UK, but I think it's quite global. So everyone across the whole world has been in this period of like the rug pulled out from under their feet.
Yeah.
It's a period of change and transition, and that can leave people feeling very disoriented. And at the same time, a stronger desire for like, hey, these things I've just had on the shelf, these things that matter to me, but I've just been getting on with my ordinary life in the rut. Actually, I really want to do that. What's going to happen tomorrow? We don't know.
Yeah, exactly.
And,
Because I mean,
and
this time of turbulence is far from over,
yeah,
far from over,
and
especially.
all our normal rules and the normal of how things work, we don't know anymore. We're in this, oh my
Mm,
gosh. And that is a kind of, I call it kind of caterpillar time, in that transition time where everything's changing, we don't know, and that can terrify the life out of some people. For me,
mm,
in the birth perspective, I think people who have had some trauma at birth, which is a major transition, will often find a change and transition in their life very unsettling.
mm,
When they don't know the rules anymore, when they're not sure of the guidance anymore, where things are changing because somewhere in their cells was that traumatic memory of when that was a time, and then that retreat from the world, it can make it very difficult to get things done, to be in the world if you've got a lingering bit of, I'm not sure I even want to be here, this is too hard, when you first came in. And so I'm quite focused on that for myself as well. Like I'm
yeah.
kind of living that as I am supporting others to do it, and I can support others to do it. And it's also, there are things that I've put into for myself, like um things that I'd had on the shelf or that I were hard for me to do, where it would mean I'd have to negotiate time that was maybe putting other people out, like childcare, extra childcare time, or putting these things on when actually I'm like focused on being a mother, focused on making sure my children are okay, my husband's okay, that everything's here. There's so much to do. And then suddenly all the things have changed everywhere. So this is something I've been living, but it's something I hear it and see it all the time with people's pain over their lost dreams, and
Mm,
and pain over things that really matter that they then diminish. Often we diminish that a little bit because, oh, well, I'll do it at some point, or I'm getting there. But there's so much to do in the ordinary every day.
yeah.
Like you said, when I pick up a point what you just said, I am quite focused on birth because it was right when we first came in, and those imprints in that altered state can be so strong. It's like a hidden link, like I said last time.
Mm,
And just to one of the ways I see it is like we tend to focus in on our immediate life right now, our immediate problems right now. And if we take a step back, it's often you can kind of see, oh, look, that struggle I have right now, I also had it when I was a teenager, or I also had it as a child. You might not remember the birth. And I would say that goes even further back. So sometimes when I look at that and people tend to, well, let's go even further back to get to the root cause. And I approach it differently, which is part of the non-personal awareness approach, which is, where am I pulled to? Where am I drawn to? It might be yesterday, like you said, it could be a trauma from the adult, is the entry point to the pattern. Because ultimately, it's what you want to get done now. That's where you're at now. It's really important. Well, part of what you want to get done now might be feeling peace with giving birth 10 years ago, so
mm,
that you can really be peaceful. Because if you have, for example, birth trauma from giving birth, every time you look at your child, that's a trigger, potentially. Every time you see them, or every time you see a baby picture, or they can be anywhere. So that might be something you're drawn to now in the life, but it might be like, well, my life was quite okay, but I've really been always trying to do this one thing, or I've never given myself permission to go on holiday by myself, learn an instrument, or whatever it might
yeah.
be. I'm trying to pick up examples of
Yeah, no, I mean, I think you're right. I think there's a lot of,
out
we
there.
get so caught up in the day-to-day life, and it's an interesting one, isn't it? Because as a yoga teacher, meditation teacher, I'm always kind of encouraging people to live in the present, because this eternal now, this moment that we are in right now is all we have. The past is just memory, and the future is unknown. So all we have is the now. And so and there's a certain amount of us that we focus in on what is in front of us now, what the news is saying today, what my bank balance is saying today, what the clients are saying today, whatever, that is. But in fact, we all know we have to take a bigger stance, and we have to have that intention and that goal of to what it is we're moving towards, and what we want to achieve, and why we want to achieve it. So getting to that, I think that's a really great sort of starting, well, not yeah, it's a great starting point, in that, like, identifying your dreams and then working out what it is you want. And it's all to do with that, the basic, our needs and desires, our survival down in the root, in the sacral chakras, those earthly chakras of what we actually need bodily. But in order to inform those needs and desires, we need to draw down this sort of ethereal, the more the crown chakra wisdom, the third eye intuition wisdom as well, and how to meld those together into actual positive action, into actually getting a productive day done. And I don't know about you, but sometimes I have a day where I sit down at my desk and bam, just suddenly I've just like done 2 meditations, bam, 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 or I've done, I've written a whole sequence of emails or whatever. And then other days I'll sit down and I'll be just like, just, don't know what to do. Whatever I write doesn't feel right. So yeah. So what are your tools, I guess? How do we get to that stage where we are consistently productive and we're not tough on ourselves, and we get to that place where we get the things done that we want to get done? How do we get there?
Yeah,
Big question.
yeah, no, it's a big question, because it's sometimes I'm great at that and sometimes I fall down at that as well. But I think it's
I think maybe accepting that is
alignment again, aligning with what matters to you and what you want, and then keeping focus on that. So you will have off days. And sometimes an off day can be then, well, actually, this is, if you're still aligned with what's happening, you go, okay, well, it's not happening today. I'm going to do this other thing that really matters to me and come back to it. But it's the coming back to it that matters. It's the same if you fall off the wagon on anything, you come back. And we tend to beat ourselves up for oh no, I didn't do anything yesterday. Somebody said to me, which I found really useful, is you tend to overestimate what you can do in a day, but underestimate what you can do in a month or a year. So it's, again, zooming out, take the over perspective. Well, yesterday was bad, but today's okay. And the week overall. And I have my one brick approach. I call it one brick because it started when I was going to do the garden, and I had a little patio to do in the back garden, and my neighbours had their driveway done, said, can I have my bricks, my old bricks? And I had a little wall to do around the patio. And so these bricks needed the cement knocking off first before you could use them, because they were pre-used. So they sat there for 3 or 4 months because the job was just too big. It really was just, there's no way I was going to be able, where am I going to find time to not spend all 300 bricks? So then I was like, 1 brick a day, Charlotte. And I calculated it would take me like a year or something.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, it's been 3 months and nothing's happened.
Yes.
I started 1 brick. Of course, you do 1 brick. You're like, well, I'll just do another. Oh, well, I'll just say, I would say 1 brick. Some days I did 1 brick, like literally
Wow.
1 brick, and that was all I could do, because there's 1 brick would take me like a minute. There's no way I could like just shout. You cannot tell yourself you've not got a minute. So I made a commitment. So I think commitment and focus, 2 really important things. I made a commitment to myself to 1 brick. It was a doable commitment, and I knew it wasn't enough to get the goal, but it was a start. And it was the getting started that I have the biggest trouble with personally. Other people, it might be a different area, but and
I
like,
think that's a lot. I think a lot of people have that. I'm the same. it's just making that start. It's like looking at my filing pile, which is yay high, and going, it's not that hard, but it's just the getting started. Once you get started, it's like, okay, I've done it.
Then it's the getting stopped. So I in a month I'd done all those bricks. So then I started doing the wall. Well, in 2 or 3 months I had the whole wall done. And whereas I'd had 2 or 3 months of doing nothing. So now I kind of joke with my friends who know about the story, or myself, one brick it, one brick it. So I've done it with everything, like learning piano. That's like, well, just 1 minute then, or just do one thing that you can just do, one scale thing, or just do something. So I've chosen the thing that really matters. I've made a commitment to myself that I am going to do that, that it's important to me. And then I one brick it, like, to make it doable. And then it's just keep bringing myself back to that, reminding myself. And the bit where that interacts with my work is you have to matter to, you have to feel that you're worth that kind of level of attention and commitment to do that for yourself, for even if it's within a system of your family, or a greater number of people are involved. And so when I'm doing work with clients, I'm peeling back anything that will prevent them from making that kind of commitment to themselves, and having the desire and passion to do that for themselves, for their life. Or it might be a bigger picture including their family, but it's that they matter enough to really put that kind of level of effort and energy into their life. This is one of the things with, obviously I see the far end of traumatized babies, as well as ones that maybe had an average birth. And those people often struggle to really feel that they're here, feel that anything they have, anyone would be interested in or have any value in, or constantly come up against blocks when they reach a certain level, or are very scared to be out in the world, which is to do with how they were received when they came here. Often for the people that come to me, like you said, it may be childhood or giving birth, like you may have gone along okay and then just reached something in your life where it's like an invitation to step up to the next level, if you like, and then there can be a support in that transition.
Now, I think that one briquette thing is that way of approaching is such a that's a really great analogy and a really useful way of looking at it. Like just spending 5 minutes doing something, because we've all got 1 minute, 5 minutes, we've all got that amount of time. And that's exactly how I've grown, the podcast and the Chakra Way course, and everything that I'm doing there is I've been plugging away at it for a good couple of years now, and I just keep saying, just keep one step, just as long as I just do something, just one little thing every day, it'll continue to grow. And I hadn't really thought about it in that sense. I was just like, but I was really motivated to do it. So because I was very passionate about it. And I think that there's a lot of things that we do in our lives that we don't feel passionately about, that we feel like we have to do, like your bricks. I mean, no one's feeling passionate about knocking cement off bricks, but it's just got to be done. So there's a sort of separation there, isn't there, between the things that we feel really strongly about, that we really care about, which it's easy to devote time to. We'll steal that time to go and do something about it, from the necessary, from doing the washing up or doing the mundane things of life. But it's getting the mundane bits of life that underpin everything else, that maybe those are the things that we also need to one brick it with, getting the things done.
I do it with cleaning the bathroom, which is a job I really don't want to do. I'm like, I chunked it down into, okay, you can clean the windowsill. You can do that today. But as soon as I start to do the windowsill, I find time to do a bit more. So I usually have it at least in half. The bath and the shower is one half, the toilet and the sink is another half. Like I can't, it's rare that I can actually do the whole bathroom in one go. And so, sometimes it's just the sink, or it's just that. So I do it in other areas on things that are ongoing, that, boring, and until I hire a cleaner, and then they'll be doing it, hopefully. It's like they have permission to outsource certain things.
Yes.
Yeah, and it's like the one brick is a fabulously useful. And you pointed at something else with the consistency. In fact, you pointed at everything I just said with your example because you were passionate, you were drawn to doing the chakra chat and the meditation and the things that you do. So you followed that, and you were consistent, you were committed, you were focused. But I'm sure there's been times when you like didn't want to or you didn't do certain things. But if you look back now over like the year, 2 years, and you see all those episodes you've got, a lot of people start podcasts and do 5 episodes and then they get voted something great and then they fall off it. But you've consistently created these really useful little meditations for people and longer chats, and it's really fabulous, and you've kept doing it.
And it's easy to do it when you're interested and you love it.
Yeah.
So, and I'm going to go back to what you talking about before, is like that those things that have been sitting on your shelf for a while. Now, you know, I'm lucky, very lucky, that I had space in my life. I mean, lockdown and everyone had a bit, but you know, I this sort of opportunity unfolded. It was something that I could do. I could expand it into my life. I didn't have to fit it in around a full-time job. I didn't have to fit it in around looking after 2 young children or whatever. You know, my kids have gone. I don't have a full-time job. You know, the other thing that I used to do, which was catering, that had fallen flat on its face, obviously, because COVID. And I walked into this, my passion, very easily. But I'm the exception. You know, most people who have a passion, you know, they probably have kids or commitments, or they have, like most people do, a job that they've got to go to 9 to 5 or whatever. So when you want to step out of that mundane thing that you feel is holding you back, that kind of, you know, like you say, your example of like having to return Amazon parcels, which is something I had to do.
Yeah.
And, you know, you like a whole day is just gone because you had to stand in the queue at the post office for, you know, 45 minutes. And it's just like ripped the heart out of your day. But you know, a full-time job is a full-time commitment. And so if it's not your passion, how do we go about, you know, finding that? I mean, I suppose the answers are fairly clear, but how do you advise people who are wanting to make a big shift? I guess it's laying the groundwork, isn't it?
So yeah, there is part of that. So I do fall into that category as I have 3 children and the youngest has only just gone into full-time school. So I'm upping a gear now. I had to be patient with myself as well and to know myself of what I can do, not compare with other people who there are some people who can manage that level of things. Perhaps they have different help or they may have partners with different hours than mine who works quite long hours, or there's other people who don't have that level of support. So I think a kind of life audit, if you like, is a good place to start to really see, well, this place I'm doing now for this reason and it's serving this purpose, but it's not forever. This is what I'd really like to do over here. And I know I can't just implement it all yet. Which bits can I, or which bits are taking me towards that, and which bits are taking me further away? It's like a kind of audit thing. And then there is an element of patience and organizational sort of patience there. And so I had to do this. And one of the things that I worked on was as I got more children and more children was I started to get burnt out and I started to get very stressed. And what had happened was prior to that with no children, I had been subtly putting myself last without realizing because I would choose to go traveling or choose to do sort of privileged activities with lots of space and time and no responsibility, work here, work there, doing things, following things that I love. But as I became a mother and took on responsibilities for things that I chose, it then came to the fore that I wasn't valuing myself in that because it's such a tricky balance when there's a lot of it was inbuilt pressure really to be a good mother and to be there for my children, that archetypal self-sacrificial mother. So when I had the third child, there were no gaps left. There were just no gaps left. So what I had was a hesitancy to put anyone else out, to um claim any time in the schedule for me. It was all everyone else's needs came first. So that took up all my time, and that's where I got burnt out trying to fit my business in the gaps, and then me after that. So I was after the business in that case, and
Yeah.
then or sometimes there'd be a bit of up and down with that. And so that's been quite a learning that I would really like others to not go through the
Yeah.
burnout illness stage, because it's so common what I hear mothers speaking, in particular mothers, because that's who I'm speaking a lot with. It may apply to fathers or parents or other people who don't have children as well, if they've got a conflict going on between what they want and their responsibilities in other areas. It may be caring for other elderly parents, for example. And it often happens to caring people who are caring and want to support other people, but they haven't somehow included themselves in that in a way that means you can carve out time because of what they're telling themselves it means. And there can be, again, this conflict between that desire to help and then just life taking over. And so I've been working a lot on that. And so what your question was about, what would you advise for people that want to do that? I would say take an audit of where you're at, but not from a judgmental place. It's more like you're just assessing, like you would if you went to the cupboards and said, what food have I got in? What food do I want in? Where's, which shop's open? Where do I go? You wouldn't be like, oh my gosh, oh no, I've got no food in the cupboard. What a terrible person I am. You'd be like, all right, we've run out of that. Let's go to the shop.
Yeah.
And it's kind of that same way to look at your life and go, yeah, well, I've done that. I chose that for this reason. Now I've changed. I want to choose this over here, but I can't do it instantly. So it's taking me time. I mean, there's things I've got like on my bucket list, if you like, I've really not got to. But on the other hand, this year, in the summer holidays, I did things that were important to me with sort of where we went, what we did on that, different holiday ideas within the context of what we had available, which was staying at my brother's house. In that particular case, we were by the sea. We did things we'd not done before in a small way. I carved out more time for myself to work than I'd ever done before. I did something really different in that way for me. Getting a piano to learn, that's something that's a long-term project that's I can do in small bits. There's still so I have an idea of what my life will be like as I've in a few years, and that means that I get joy from the things that aren't as joyful as the final picture will be, because I know what it's leading me towards. It's small steps, and then I guess I'm bringing some of that into what I'm doing with my clients, where one of the things, like you said, is you have these plans and then you don't get to them, or life takes over and you're like, damn it, I was going to do this. So it's the same with, I know there are people that signed up to have the Explore Your Own Birth workbook. Some people did it straight away, like you did, and got insights from it, and others are like, oh yeah, I was going to do that. Oh yeah, life got in the way. So it's why I was like, maybe this is something that I can do. Like maybe people would like to have a walk you through it, where I can help and guide you along the way. Because it's one of the things that has helped me so much, is having that extra perspective of help and guidance. In the parenting realm, for example, if you're at home with kids all day, you can end up being in this kid world with one, the conversation, but two, the arguments and the mediation, that kind of thing that can happen. And then you get another adult perspective on that and you feel supported.
You
just relax into that, and suddenly your brain's available again, your passion and life is available again. And that's kind of what I'm really keen on at the moment, is when I zoom out again into a bigger picture, I'm like, the world's got so much that it wants to come through at the moment, so much change, and people are jaded and exhausted. But to find that passion again and feel that they're making a difference, when the small scale and the big scale, it's the same. On your day-to-day business, when you've got a full-time commitment in a job you don't like, for example, and children to look after, and you actually have this dream thing over here and it feels unobtainable, it's easy to get like, what's the point? And the big picture is the same. When we see crazy stuff going on politically, we see it happening in wars, we see all these things, we can just be like, what can I do? But for me, again, it comes back to that one brick, what you can do over time, what you're contributing to with the energy you're doing now, aligning with that matters to you, your priorities, and whoever you get for support, because I feel it's like a collaborative time. It's the opposite of what we're seeing in the political world, really. It's like collaborative time, community collaboration, and And I bring it back to kind of birth and biology. I think we're all still influenced by Darwin and survival of the fittest and all this competition, and it's me, me, me. And what I see with people who've had trauma very early in life, there's that conflict again of I don't matter or I don't value, so therefore I want more attention. I want what I didn't have, those needs met, and there's this inner conflict around that. And
yes, the sort of I want to be seen culture.
Yeah, I want to be seen because I wasn't. I want to be heard because I wasn't. I want to matter because I don't. And inside there's that trauma that you're carrying, the pain of that, which can be shifted. And people have got when it's birthed with early, what tends to happen is people think, I'm just like that. It's just the way I am. It's just the way things are, which isn't a great start point for I can change.
Yeah.
And when you look at it from a perspective of collaboration, like within systems, so you might have the family system, you might have whatever your community system is, and you're looking at collaboration. It's like everyone's supporting everyone else to be greater. And then with that kind of one brick, it's like a community of bricks, and we did one of them at a time, but all of them were involved in that wall in the end. I know I come back to the one bricks, and that's what it feels like currently, that we can build something much greater than we realize. And I'm really keen on reconnecting people into that really matters, that really powers them up, fires them up.
And it's all about and I love what you're saying. I think you're definitely onto something here, because empowering people to follow what they want to do and find their passion and find what makes them buzz and tick and lights them up and all of that sort of thing is of course the path to fulfillment, isn't it? Is feeling like you're doing something that you're really loving. And what really struck me from what you've been saying was that thing about people putting themselves last. And I think a lot of people, women especially, even if they're out there doing some, looks like they're fulfilling themselves in a big sort of busy career. Now, yes, some people, obviously their career is their passion and they are feeling fulfilled by that work. But I think that there's a lot of overwhelm. You can have the job, but then you've got the kids and you've got the home and you've got the husband or the partner or the wife, or you've got the parents, and there's so many other things that you end up putting yourself last on the list. And it reminded me of the other day, my youngest son called, and he's like, he does about 1 million different things. He's got about 5 different projects on the go all the time. He's really sort of very entrepreneurial but slightly chaotic, and as you are at 23. And he's like, he called me up and I'm just feeling overwhelmed, and I don't know what to do first. I've got so many things to do. I just don't feel like I can do any of them because I don't even know where to begin. And my husband gave him the best advice, which is, segment these things into what is urgent, like what needs to be done, what's going to free up the most. Once you've completed it, it's going to free up enough time for you to do the other things in your life. So basically writing a priority list. And I think you can do that, in physical terms, like with him, with just loads of different things that he's juggling. But I think it's really important to put yourself into that equation as well, to see where you fit in this list of things. So when you write your list of priorities, what's like super urgent, what's super priority, can I achieve that's going to free up the most time so that I'm feeling less pressured? Where do you personally fit on this list? Time for you to do the things you want to do to fulfill the dreams. Where do you come in that list? It's unlikely you're going to be in the urgent list, but are you in the, but where do you fit in personally in that list? I think that what you've kind of sparked me into thinking that you're finding your importance within the rest of your life So, yes, you've got, the bathroom to clean and the kids to look after and the meals to cook and what have you. But like, where's you in this list of things? Invariably, we put ourselves at the bottom. I've got to wash my hair, like, whatever it is. I feel like, well, it can wait because nothing bad's going to happen if I don't wash my hair. But actually, you feel a bit disgusting because your hair looks a bit grotty. Do you know what I mean? It's like putting yourself as,
It's a balance between letting some things go,
yeah,
like as you can, and you can't get that done at the moment, and then putting yourself in to make sure certain things happen, which again, like with the audit of it, like you said, making a list, which ones are really important that you really need to do no matter what, and which ones can you let go, giving yourself permission to let certain things go.
So I'm going to bring this right back to the beginning, because I was, obviously last time we talked about birth trauma and that was super interesting, but back to where we started, which was this use of MPA.
Mm-hmm.
So do you use MPA in your coaching, leadership, whatever, when you have a client? Do you use MPA as a tool? Is that one of your...
I use it in my life generally.
Mm.
I often have programs on the go, and I use it also with clients. So it's not something I'm doing for the people that I don't use myself, which is, I do use it. I do still use it because it's so quick and easy, but it's also profound. I mean, I received a session yesterday, for example, and we did some NPA in that, and I have a program where I'm focusing at the moment on within my own life, and then with clients, I use it to support. I use it in combination with the compassion key. I use it to help release traumatic patterns and awareness and beliefs from any age or from the child, and it's about feeling the alignment and the animation. So yeah, I do use it.
So listen, Charlotte, before we go, because I know we've both got deadlines in about 10 minutes. So before we go, I want you to just précis, if you can, and give people the MPA thing, because whilst I did a podcast with Claire a while back, at the beginning of the year, this is something that I feel I use personally, even in my chakra work and when I'm guiding people through chakra course and so on, I still use this because I feel like it's such a powerful way to shift your emotion, to shift your energy, to let things pass through. So will you just give us a really quick sort of précis of what it is and the actual sort of words of it, so that we've got...
like a description, or do you want to demonstrate it? Like, I mean, like if I could do what we could do an NPA if you'd like, or I can describe it.
I think describe it, because it's a bit boring to listen to somebody. I think just describe it for now, and if people are interested, we can do a demonstration another time.
Okay. I mean, it's a good time because I'm looking at doing, like I said, the walk through the Explore Your Birth thing, and Joel himself has got a weekend coming up of the Harmony Equation, which is a conflict resolution integrating different energies. So then he's doing it with a fabulous 85% discount off, and that's coming up in November. So it's actually a really good time to talk about NPA because there's stuff happening.
And if anybody's interested, just when Charlotte's talking about Joel, it's Joel Young. So you can look him up if you just
He's the
Google
founder,
Joel Young MPA. He's the person who brought the MPA. I don't know.
I can give you a link to him and to the Harmony Equation and to generally him, because he gives away the process like we're talking about today. He gives away on a process sheet. I think you've linked to that before with me and Claire, that because it's so simple, but there's an art form in learning how to use it well. And it is just 6 lines, which you use a word that you've picked that points to something that's going on for you. So it's like the words are a label. We call them cookie cutters in NPA language, that point to a body of consciousness that's hooked into you somehow, whether you're keeping stuff out or you need to let stuff in. There's something off in that. There's something that needs attention. And then you use that within a set of 6 lines that are about experiencing the energy of that in its fullness. And when you allow that to be willing to really experience that, which is one of the lines, I'm willing to experience. It sounds almost too simple, like what, you name something and then you experience it, but essentially that's it.
It is
And with those
beautiful.
words, it does some kind of extra magic,
Yeah.
and it shifts, it moves. And so yeah, there's just 6 lines of naming it, and then opening into the energy of that and allowing yourself to experience it and seeing where you are from there.
Mm. Yeah. So I'll put the 6 lines in the show notes of this episode so that anyone can find it. And also links to Joel Young, and obviously, of course, to all of your lovely stuff as well, because I've seen your website. It's looking really nice. But I just, I'm really keen that so many, more people find this extraordinary thing, because, if you, it's kind of when you're talking to, if you're talking to a friend and you're just venting about how frustrated you are about your life, about something, and there's going to be a word or an expression that comes out when you're talking about it, that's your cookie cutter, as they call it. That's the thing that you're going to use in this. And just, either find an NPA practitioner to work with. But I always recommend it for people who kind of want, and it's not a quick fix, because that seems denigrating to the power and the beauty and the simplicity of it. But I do, I do want to urge people to look deeper into that. So yeah. So listen, Charlotte, is there anything else that you want to chat about before we head our separate ways? Because I know you're on a deadline.
I'm just distracted by my deadline asking me if I'll be okay, and I'm like, yeah, I'm okay.
Oh, well, listen,
no,
we can meet again a million more times. I could talk to you for ages. And
we ask your audience what are the questions they put to us. What do they really want to hear from me and you? But anything else I'd like to say? I feel like it's a time for people to really choose what matters to them and make it happen. And whether that be they can just decide to do that, and it's okay. Not everybody necessarily needs therapy or support, but it's just that decision. And it may not happen immediately, but it's in that decision that, okay, I want this and I'm going to make it happen. Because when you decide that you want something and you're going to make it happen, by default, you're making yourself matter. You're making yourself have enough value to do that. And then whatever needs to come to you to make that happen will start to show up. And it might be that you're like, shit, actually, I'm going to click on this NPA link and go on that, or I'm going to go and look at Charlotte's workbook, or I'm going to come and do some yoga with Roseanne, whatever it might be. Or it may just be something he's going to change your job or apply for a promotion, whatever it is.
Yeah.
It's going to come more obvious to you, because when you've decided, made that commitment to yourself, it's not always an easy path, but it's certainly more rewarding than not. Because one of the things that I'm keen on in my business is supporting people to not have regrets. Those things that niggle at you, where you're like, well, I knew I wanted that, but I was too scared, or I didn't, and I wish I had now. So it's like healing that, like, okay, we can't change that, but right now, what you're living now, you don't want to get 20 years down the line and go, well, again, I regret, like these things. It's like, it feels like a time of opportunity.
Yeah. If not now, when? Yeah. If the world is going to hell in a handbasket, we might as well go down fighting.
Might as well get on.
Yeah, exactly. Why not? I
And
totally
I don't actually think the world is going down in a hell in a handbasket. It just looks that way, feels that way at the moment. I mean, it really does. If you look in a certain direction, and again, this is where I feel that we're called to, what do you want? Okay, the world's crazy shit. Hell in a handbasket might be a good description of where it's at right now, but what do you want? And can you make it? I commit to making that happen. And again, like an exploration with NPA, for example, can support you to understand experientially with the energy what matters within you about what you want to make happen. So if you want to make a new job happen or whatever, it's because you want to feel strong or free or powerful. And And there's ways that shows up practically. And when you align with that energy that really matters to you and what you really want to do, make it happen. And I think that's what the world's calling for, because then it won't be all this other, it's like a transition, a larger transition period, which is, I think, where my work comes in with
I agree.
going through
Yeah.
transition.
Yeah. I think what you're talking about is wonderful. And really it's like finding that motivation to follow your passions, to follow what's true for you, to be your authentic self, but to look after yourself as well.
And it can feel hard when you've had a tough time to even want to bother, even get out of bed. And that's where support, like whether it be from you, from me, from Joel, support. And again, just that can be hard. That can be hard, just even reaching out or admitting that there's a problem. But when you do, it opens something new. It opens up a new pathway. And to be supported through it, I've been really enjoying having support, and in the last years or two, and asking for more of it actually is beginning to feel joyful, even if it still feels tough.
Yeah, no,
That's what I want. I want people to be like, when you have that support, you give the gift of someone supporting you, and we that collaboration feel when you connected with other people on a project or on, you know, whatever that might be, whether it's a walk in the park with your friend or a big business idea, it's all scales, that collaboration feel of community.
I think a lot of people sometimes think, oh, I can't possibly ask them, because it weighs so heavy on them. They think that it's this big, huge, but in fact, it's only this big to somebody else. It's not a big deal for somebody else to just give you that support that's going to help you hugely. So yeah, I agree. Finding support is really important. So listen, thank you, Charlotte, for your time today. It's been amazing, and we will speak again very soon.
Yeah, that's good fun. Thank you.